I would also point out that, I mean, in Romans 1:20, it said that by looking at the physical world, the attributes that we can clearly understand that God has made the world. And so that was just common coin for Paul the Apostle and for many people, that yes, the world did give signs of intelligence, but still that didn't get you the faith that the Christians had. Okay, enough said.
Well, could I just say,
yeah, in fact,
I mean it by way of applause. That I think it's remarkable for Dr. Dembski to say that his scientific work doesn't have and isn't supposed to have any Christian implications. And it's a great generous admission on your part.
Well, but it does get you in the right direction. It's friendly. I would say intelligent design is friendly to Christian theism in a way that Darwinian evolution never was and never was intended to be. I mean, if you look at Darwin toward the end of his life, he was a strong agnostic in the sense that no knowledge of any God was possible at all.
All right. Well, we've got some time for questions that we'd love for you guys to respond to, and what we'd like to add too, if you have one question for each other at the end, based on what the responses that you'd like to ask Mr. Hitchens or you'd like to ask Dr. Dembski, we'll save time for that as well. The first question, and these are for both of you to respond to. Obviously, they're kind of pointed towards one person or the other, but the first one is for Mr. Hitchens. Using the evolutionary process, where do you, and you answered this a little bit, but if you could expound on it, where does the concept of human thought and the ability to reason come in, especially in dealing with things that would seem to go against the evolutionary concept? The idea you mentioned before was self-sacrifice. Why would there continue to be something like self-sacrifice if that's not going to continue to move on the species? So where does that idea, the ability to reason, come from using evolution?
Well, I think the question may be confusing the idea of reasoning with the idea of self-sacrifice, which isn't necessarily an irrational one. My favorite example, I think, would be because we do need an explanation, or it would be nice to have one. It's a good speculation. Why do people get pleasure from doing things that aren't necessarily in their interest, just for the sake of other people? I hope no one in this room hasn't had that feeling at a certain point. And it's very nice that we have it, along with all our predatory and selfish and other survival necessary attributes. I think my favorite example is that of giving blood. I like giving blood. I like the feeling that I'm giving someone else a life-giving fluid. I am giving it. I'm also not losing it. It doesn't take very long to replenish a pint of blood, so it's a really wonderful gift relationship to have. You haven't lost a pint, but you've given one. So there's no need for any sort of feel-good or self-congratulation about it. You haven't really made a big sacrifice, but you've taken a little time, you've thought about other people. And then I have a very, very rare blood group, and I'm very anxious that there be enough blood when it's my turn. So there's every interest in the good feeling that I have, the warm feeling that I have, being one that evolution has given me for my sake and for everybody else's. I don't think there's anything very mysterious about that, do you? Apparently not. Okay. It doesn't require that I have a divine spark. It doesn't require any design. It doesn't require any programming. And I'm perfectly aware of the fact that a lot of people don't do it. Don't. And of course there are a lot of people who don't care about others at all. We call them sociopaths. And the design apparently also makes quite a lot of psychopaths, people who can only be happy, making other people unhappy. These are all children of God as well, according to you. It's not my problem. That's exactly what you would expect from the imperfectly evolved primate species. No mysteries there. Nothing to explain, nothing to call on God about. Why did you allow Hitler? We know where Hitler comes from. There's no, the principle of Occam's razor in logic and philosophy, keep it by you at all times. Don't make mysteries where none exist. Don't increase the number of unnecessary and complex questions. Very important principle. It's death to religion, that principle.
you. Would you like to respond to that as well?
Maybe just a follow-up. I mean, it's certainly a big theme both here and in Christopher Hitchens' book, this idea of bonding, that evolution has given us some sort of group solidarity, makes us bond, and that this helps preserve the species. So it's so it all kind of matches up. And you know, I think there's you can get that from evolution. I don't think you need to get it exclusively from evolution. I think certainly one can argue on basis of design that God has designed us to be social creatures. But the thing is, if you're going to take the bonding from evolution, it seems that there are lots of other things that you can take as well. I mean, Darwin referred to evolution, the evolutionary process, as the great battle for life. And some people have taken it in a very negative and violent way. There were two authors recently that wrote a book on the evolutionary history of rape and argued that rape is an evolutionary adaptation. You have somebody like Steven Pinker writing, I think it was in the New York Review of Books or New York Times Magazine about 11 years ago, justifying infanticide because in our hunter-gatherer past, mothers would sometimes kill their infants during times of drought so that they would have more resources, could keep themselves alive, so that when the drought was past and then times of abundance came back, then she could get pregnant again, have a child, and then rear it properly. And so this was, why did Steven Pinker write this? Because there had been this prom mom, a girl who had gone to a prom, delivered a child, and killed it there. So the thing is, evolution is a very mixed bag. You can argue for some good things out of it, and you can look at the animal world and you'll see some very nice fuzzy things that behave very nicely to each other, and then you'll see some very wicked things. And I think this was actually the problem for Darwin. If you read, he cut his teeth on William Paley's Natural Theology. The longest chapter in William Paley's Natural Theology is the second to the last one, in which he's trying to justify the evils in nature, and he tries to really minimize it. He poo-poos it. He says, well, yes, organisms kill each other and they die, but it really happens very quickly and there's not much pain. Darwin takes his voyage on the Beagle, looks at the natural world, and he sees a world of parasites and nastiness. And he says, how could this be? How could a good God design something like this? And you see this mixed bag in nature. And this is actually, I think, a challenge for design to make sense of also the nasties. But the thing is, it's a challenge for design, but it's not a refutation of design, because we can determine whether something is designed independent of the morality or goodness or optimality of the design. So the issues run very deep, and we're not going to really be able to resolve them here, but I do want to give you some sense that there is a discussion here, and there's some interesting issues, and things are also not that pat in terms of trying to understand bonding and the feel-good things in our morality and our being simply on the basis of evolution. It's a mixed bag.
Whereas only a few verses away, only a few verses later than the Ten Commandments, God instructs the children of Israel to kill everyone of the other tribe, the Amalekites, the Midianites, everybody, all the men, all the children, and to leave only the marriageable women alive. That's an instruction that's very frequently repeated, by the way, and invariably carried out. When Thomas Paine pointed that out in The Age of Reason a couple of centuries ago, there was a Welsh bishop who wrote in, complaining to him, saying, the Bible does not say those women were kept for immoral purposes. You're free to believe that if you wish. But if you're going to bring up rape and evolution and the way that humanity actually behaves, under divine instruction, I'm pointing out here, you must stop saying what I meant to correct you from saying earlier, that what I attack is what people do in the name of religion. No, they don't mistake religion when they obey commandments like this. What I object to is what's in the original instructions. And these are instructions for rape, genocide, and slavery. They are instruction manuals for it. And also, how to behave like a slave yourself. Just to come.
I want to be careful here because, the topic of the debate was the existence and goodness of God. We weren't talking about Christian theism, but I think here we are at obviously a Christian church, so let's talk a little bit about this. Certainly if we're going to do this, we have to get into a little bit of Christian theology. One thing that's very clear is that, in Christian theology, is that this is a broken, fallen world. And in a broken, fallen world, there are often no good, no optimal solutions. And I think we can see this even in human contexts. The dropping of the A-bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Difficult decision. Do we do it? We did it. Not to do it meant probably losing hundreds of thousands of American lives. So the problem is that in a fallen world there is no perfect optimization strategy. And it seems to me that God, in dealing with a fallen world, is often confronted with trying to get the best of some bad options. And I think one thing, it's funny that the Amalekites keep coming up. The Jews decimated or annihilated them. But the thing is, the Jews also turned against themselves. They probably fought as much against themselves as they fought against other people, and sometimes in divine judgment. When the concubine in Judges was dismembered because of this, the Benjaminites, almost the entire tribe of Benjamin was destroyed. God is a just God, and in a sense, He is not bound by the same rules that we are. He makes the rules, and the fact is we all die, and this is a decision by God. I mean, the way the world is structured. Why do we have this death? Why is it a broken and fallen world? Ultimately, Christian theology teaches that this is as a result of human rebellion against God. So you've got this whole system of theology. Now, Christopher Hitchens looks at that, he's aware of it, and he's not going to have a part of it. But there is the whole system that comes to you, and it does. The alternatives, it seems, if you're not going to go with a theistic position, a Christian theistic position, or some other position, maybe you don't find that one right, then it seems that you're confronted with an atheistic position, which has its own problems. I think the indignation and that Christopher Hitchens feels, and the thing is, I applaud probably 80-90% of his book, the hypocrisies, the problems that he finds. No question about that. But on what basis does he do that? And I don't think he can do it on an atheist. I think often one gets the sense that he comes in, it's hit and run, all these faults that he can find, problems that he can find with religion. But he has an atheistic worldview, and that has problems of itself. In a fallen world, no worldview is going to be perfect. It's not going to cover things. I mean, that's the problem. And so we do have a problem of evil. We have a problem with good. We have lots of problems.
We can either go back to questions or you can continue on. Do you have a response to that?
Well, in an evolutionary mammalian world, also quite obviously there is no perfect solution either, as I've said. I hardly need to say it once you've described that that's what we are, imperfectly evolved mammals on a short-lived planet. People now object to that, though it's true, and there's all the evidence is in its favor. We are poorly evolved mammals on a short-lived, rather endangered planet. People say, well, if you believe that, that's depressing, nihilistic, makes things seem so random and capricious and so on. Well, yes, but is it true or not? And what is true of your view? What is true of your view, sir? Well, you've just said that God makes a human species, takes a brief look at it and decides it's in rebellion against me. It doesn't know how it's done this, but that's his verdict. You're in rebellion against me. For one thing, you've broken the rule I gave you, don't think for yourselves. You deliberately went and looked for knowledge. Now you're in rebellion. Now you're going to suffer. Now there's nothing that won't happen to you. I made you and I can break you. And I will. I'll flood you, I'll plague you. Now, what is this? This is like being a terrible insect or rodent in the laboratory of a cruel and stupid person. And what is more nihilistic? What's more nihilistic and alienating than that? It's all summarized in one line, if you wish. To believe what Dr. Dembski believes and his co-thinkers believe, you have to consider yourself created incurably sick and then ordered on pain of death and eternal torture to be well. This is not morality.